Have you ever encountered something that forever altered your perspective on a particular notion? I have. As a detective immersed in murder investigations and accustomed to confronting death and gruesome scenes, I harbored no fear. I firmly believed that once life departed, it departed for good, scoffing at those who embrace notions of lingering spirits. However, that certainty crumbled when I encountered a paranormal entity, an encounter that planted the seeds of terror deep within me. It was about a decade ago when I traveled to Abuja for some business. I had originally planned to stay at my friend's house, yet upon reaching there, I found that it was too far from the location where I had the business. Therefore, I decided to stay at his other house, relatively closer to my intended destination, which he used to rent to people. It was a quaint, weathered building nestled in a remote area. Its aged facade bore signs of wear and tear, with some parts seemingly scarred by past fires. Despite its slightly eerie appearance, I had no qualms about settling into the place. However, my friend felt compelled to warn me about the lurking dangers within. He disclosed the unsettling history of paranormal activities that had left previous tenants psychologically scarred, leading him to hesitate in renting it out again. Brushing off his concerns as mere superstition, I insisted on staying there. As a seasoned detective, I had endured far more ominous places and encountered events that had rendered me impervious to fear. Reassuring my friend that I was undeterred, I collected the keys and embarked on my journey to the house. As I prepared to depart, my friend insisted that I check in with him at night to reassure him of my well-being. I agreed, though I couldn't help but chuckle inwardly at the superstition that prompted such a request. It seemed absurd to believe in things that lacked any tangible existence. Little did I realize, however, that this belief would soon be put to the test. Upon arriving at the house, I swiftly unlocked the door and stepped inside, greeted by the musty air that lingered within. Unfazed by the eerie atmosphere, my resilient demeanor remained unshaken as I proceeded directly to the bedroom. After taking a shower, I carefully unpacked my belongings, indulged in a satisfying dinner, and settled in for a restful night's sleep, anticipating a fresh start the next morning. Despite the underlying tension that seemed to linger in the air, I felt relatively at ease with my surroundings. However, at some time around midnight, this tranquility swiftly gave way to unease when the repeated creaking of doors jolted me from my deep slumber. Startled and disoriented, I wondered whether an intruder had breached the sanctity of the house with nefarious intent. Dismissing any fleeting thoughts of the supernatural, a concept I had never entertained, I cautiously rose from my bed to investigate the source of the disturbance. Retrieving my gun from the side drawer, I moved silently toward the door in the dimness. With caution, I eased it open, striving to avoid any noise and alert the intruder. In the meantime, the clamor of slamming doors had also subsided, getting replaced by an unsettling silence once again. Though I prided myself on my resilience, this caused me to feel a tinge of unease and nervousness. Dismissing the sensation, I grabbed a torch and the gun, heading towards the living room where I suspected the disturbance originated. As I stepped into the living room, an eerie silence enveloped me, devoid of any trace of human presence. It felt as though the house had never welcomed a soul, and the voices I thought I'd heard were mere figments of my imagination, stirred by my friend's cautious warnings. While thinking that, I realized that I had not assured him of my safety and turned around to go back to my room and send him a text message. However, before I could make a move, a sight unfolded before me, leaving me paralyzed with disbelief. Standing at the threshold of the living room was a young girl, perhaps no more than 11 or 12 years old, wearing a nightgown that looked pretty old. Her rough, knee-length blonde hair swayed gently in the wind, partially obscuring the side of her face, which bore the marks of a severe burn. Tears glistened in her eyes, and her expression betrayed a profound sorrow. I stood still in shock, struck by disbelief at her sudden appearance on this chilly night. However, before I could grasp the situation, she vanished from view, leaving behind a haunting emptiness in the room. Dismissing the thought that she was a paranormal being, I ran to the door of the room, scanning the area in search of her elusive presence. Yet, my efforts yielded nothing. Suddenly, a heart-wrenching sob pierced the air from behind me, prompting me to swiftly turn around. There, sitting beside the settee, was the same child, tears staining her cheeks, and drops of blood trickling from her chin. Stunned by the macabre scene unfolding before me, I found myself rooted to the spot, aghast. Meanwhile, the child, who was racked with anguish, now erupted into peals of laughter, the sound reverberating in my mind like a tumultuous storm, threatening to engulf my sanity. As I desperately yelled at her to stop, I instinctively covered my ears with my hands and stumbled to the ground. A strange warmth engulfed my body, while my blood surged through my veins with an almost unbearable intensity, as if it were on the verge of bursting forth at any given moment. Meanwhile, the spectral presence of the child continued to flicker in and out of sight within the room, her laughter and cries echoing incessantly within the confines of both the space and my thoughts. After enduring this grueling ordeal for what felt like an eternity, I began to feel disoriented and eventually succumbed to unconsciousness. Even in my state of oblivion, the haunting echoes of those dreadful cries refused to leave me, enveloping me in a sinister silence. When I woke up, I found myself in a hospital room, with my friend standing vigil by my bedside. He recounted how, upon receiving no response from me, he grew concerned and decided to check on my well-being the following morning, only to discover me in the throes of a severe seizure. Still reeling from the shock of it all, I told him whatever I had experienced. To my surprise, he didn't seem shocked and simply reminded me of his earlier warnings about the place, words I had foolishly disregarded in my eagerness to stay there. He revealed that this house was once home to a Russian couple and their beloved daughter. In a tragic turn of events, while the parents were away, the young girl stumbled upon a heater, inadvertently igniting her clothing in a burst of flames. In her panicked frenzy, she dashed about, her anguished cries piercing the air, yet unwittingly fueling the fire's fury. Before her parents could rush to her rescue, she succumbed to the flames, claiming not only her own life but also engulfing a portion of their home in the relentless blaze. Following that tragic incident, her parents decided to vacate the house and sold the property to him. Undertaking a few renovations, he then began to lease out this property to different people as a business. However, after a barrage of complaints from tenants, he ceased renting out the property and locked its doors. After hearing it all, I realized the spectral child with a partially burnt visage, whom I had encountered in the living room, was of supernatural origin, leaving me profoundly shaken. This encounter reshaped my disbelief in the supernatural and revealed to me the genuine essence of fear. Despite having overcome the trauma of that event over the past decade, I still find myself grappling with occasional seizures, sometimes necessitating hospitalization that can span several days. It taught me the invaluable lesson that our beliefs should never be rigidly fixed, as they can sometimes be misguided. Life has a way of challenging our certainties, urging us to remain open-minded and receptive to new understandings.